I'm Sal Greco, and you're watching and listening to the Sal Greco Show. If you are watching us on Rumble, please hit that like button, hit that share button, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification button. If you're watching on Rumble, hit the Rumble button, hit the follow button. And if you're listening on any major podcast streaming platform, please hit the like button, share, or subscribe. Boy, oh boy, it's a whirlwind of news today. So I'm going to cover a couple of topics and then play my segment on the Joe Hoft show. Joe Hoft is actually a hero in my book because he was the first and only journalist to report on the misdeeds going on at Con Sofrito, and then many other journalists kicked in after the fact. So he was the first one, basically riding in on his horse, took the chance, stuck his neck out, and I commend him for that. But so you'll be seeing that after I report on some of the news going on again in the last 24 hours. It's been a whirlwind, of news, and it's unbelievable that we start the year with a terrorist attack in New Orleans. So here's a post by Kyle Seraphin in regards to this terrorist attack that apparently took place, I guess, in New Orleans on New Year's Eve night or New Year's Eve early in the morning. And if you don't know Kyle, he's a former FBI agent who's also in litigation with the federal government. So he posts, the at FBI and at DHS Gov spent their time calling out, quote, white supremacy, end quote, radical traditionalist Catholics, end quote, as described by at SPL Center, and Christians more broadly who prayed outside of abortion clinics. The opportunity cost is failing their, quote, zero fail, end quote, mission of stopping terrorism. And here is a picture from at Nick Sautor in regards to this incident. Nick Sautor reported, breaking, the New Orleans attacker has been identified as 42-year-old Shamsuddin Jabbar, who had an ISIS flag per NOLA. We also know now the rented truck contained explosives and he was wearing full body armor. We need to know why the FBI originally said this was not a terror attack. And here is the picture of the truck with, I don't know, it is really messed up because remember, it drove into people. I mean, this is horrific. And there's a flag in the back. It's a Texas plate. And there's a second one with a close-up. Now here's Garrett O'Boyle at GoBactual on X. He posts this in regards to this New Orleans terrorist attack. Alethea Duncan is the ASAC over national security at FBI New Orleans. Yet here she contradicts the mayor who said it was a terrorist attack. That would be the whole point of having agents assigned to national security work in the investigation. But like most leaders in the at FBI, Alethea has spent more time trying to promote than she has being an actual investigator. She doesn't exactly portray confidence or knowledge. But then again, that is also your FBI today. At Kash Patel could spend 10 years trying to remove this type of incompetence and still not clean it out. So let's hear what Alethea had to say.
Good morning. My name is Alethea Duncan. I'm the Assistant Special Agent in charge for FBI New Orleans. As Chief Kirkpatrick said, we'll be taking over the investigative lead for this event. This is not a terrorist event. What it is right now is their improvised explosive devices that was found. And we are working on confirming if it's a viable device or not. As Chief Kirkpatrick said, we're asking everyone to stay away from Bourbon Street, specifically from Canal Street to St. Anne. That is my ask. Once again, stay away from Bourbon Street.
So what do we know here? there is clearly a terrorist attack that took place on New Year's Eve / New Year's morning in New Orleans, and it's always like two different stories going on as this progresses. The mayor says one thing, and here is this FBI official. The ASAC is what we call the assistant. She's in charge, basically, of that area of New Orleans as far as the FBI goes. And it's always a conflicting story. The one thing that people are all in agreement with, whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, Independent, we want transparency. We want accountability. And all these people that are in charge ever do, short of partying, we know they love to party. That's been documented almost on every episode of the Sal Greco show. They always choose to push out a narrative. So the original narrative is, there's no terrorist acts here. Do us a favor. Don't come here. Leave this area. We've got it from here. And then you hear the reality that it is a terrorist attack. But that's what the average citizen was saying to begin with. So the only problem I have here is the mixed messaging. Why is there always a mixed message? Just get it right from the beginning. Stop misdirecting the public. That is not the way to do things. And it's a horror show what happened there. My heart goes out to everyone who's a victim or friends or families of the victims, because this kind of stuff has to stop. But, what could you say? You can't keep, every single thing locked down as far as law enforcement goes. And, unfortunately, you always have to prepare for the worst. That's how I did in New York City Police Department, and I'm sure other officers do that as well. This is something that's so random, but it does occur, from time to time here in the United States. And you have to try to guard against it as best as you can. And now this is a mess, and they have to figure out, is this part of a cell, or are there other people involved? So we'll see. I'm sure this is a developing story, but it's always a story that in the beginning shows deception and misdirection by officials. Speaking of officials, we have subway crime in New York City. Crime on the subway, crime in transit. We had a recent incident where someone was burnt to a crisp by an illegal immigrant, and now we have another incident that occurred just in the last 24 hours. And I'm going to read two articles that are referencing both incidents, and I'm going to show you this on the screen as well. Sleeping woman burned to death on NYC subway train pictured in high school yearbook photo. $1 Million Smiles by Alec Jerty from the New York Post. The sleeping subway passenger who was burned to death on a Brooklyn F train had aspirations to be a flight attendant and was known for her $1 Million Smile, according to her high school yearbook biography. Debrina Kawam, known to her classmates as Debbie or Deb, graduated from Passaic Valley Regional School in Little Falls, New Jersey in 1985, the New York Times reported. Kawam, 57, later fell on hard times. Sources said she was living in New York City homeless shelters from September until December 2nd. Her horrific death shocked the city and the nation. Illegal Guatemalan immigrant Sebastian Zabeta Khalil is charged with setting her on fire around 7:30 a.m. December 22nd on an F train in the Stillwell Avenue, Coney Island station. She was asleep on the train when she was set ablaze, video shows. Kawam, who was originally from Toms River, said her memories at the public school were participating in freshman and sophomore cheerleading and that her secret ambition was to party forever. She signed off her biography thanking her parents for everything. Kawam was one of 3 students who earned the superlative of $1 Million Smile and most punk, according to the outlet. Kawam's body was ID'd through fingerprints more than a week after the horrific tragedy. Zapata Khalil, 33, who was deported in 2018 but sneaked back into the U.S., was indicted on first and second degree murder and one count of arson on December 27th. He claimed he was too drunk and didn't remember the attack. Zapata Khalil faces up to life in prison without the possibility of parole if he's convicted on the top count of first-degree murder, Brooklyn District Attorney Eric Gonzalez said. Quote, "It is the most serious statute in New York state law, and my office is very confident about the evidence in this case and our ability to hold Zapata accountable for his dastardly deeds," end quote, Gonzalez said. Toms River resident Olga Corpion had purchased a house Kawam's mother once lived in and said she met Debrina shortly after Corpion moved into the neighborhood in May. Quote, she said, "Hi, my name is Debrina and I want to go see my mom. My mother lives here. I want to talk to her," Corpion told the Post. She looked like she was in her 50s, so right away I assumed she was not well because she didn't know her mom had moved. I'm in shock that she was standing right there, and then I found out she died so horribly, end quote. Strap hanger shoved into path of subway train ID'd as NYC music programmer Joseph Linsky by Georgette Roberts and Jorge Fitzgibbon. The strap hanger shoved into the path of a Manhattan subway train is a Big Apple music programmer who is on track to make a full recovery, despite serious wounds such as a cracked skull, his family reportedly said. Joseph Linsky, 45, is also dealing with 4 broken ribs and a ruptured spleen at Bellevue Hospital after the Tuesday afternoon attack at the 18th Street 1 train. Quote, "He's good," Linsky's brother, Christopher Linsky, told the Daily News as he arrived at Bellevue Hospital. "He's busted up a little bit, but he's going to make a full recovery," end quote. Joseph Linsky is listed in stable condition at the hospital. According to his LinkedIn profile, the strap hanger is head of content and music program at the Manhattan-based entertainment agency Greco. As he recovered from his injuries, his alleged attacker, 23-year-old Kamel Hawkins, was arraigned on attempted murder and assault charges in Manhattan Criminal Court and ordered held without bail. His father, Shamel Hawkins, told the Post on Wednesday that his son had been fine until he, quote, began acting weird recently. Lately, he's been going through something, some mental issues, the elder Hawkins said. "We think somebody put something in his weed," end quote. So these were 2 horrific incidents that occurred. One, just 24 or 48 hours ago, and the other a week ago. And they were highly disturbing. My heart goes out to the victims here and the victims' families. A speedy recovery to that victim that got shoved on the tracks. My God. I mean, listen, I was a police officer in New York City, and I don't remember seeing all these incidents that occur in transit or, on the subway. That is, look, these people. First, the illegal immigrant that murdered someone and lit them on fire. That gentleman should have never been in this country. That is a failure by not only the mayor, the state legislators, the governor, but government in general at the presidential level. You should have corrected this problem. I thought the country was correcting this problem until the recent president was in office, and open borders, it doesn't work. You can't just let everyone in without being vetted. This person got deported and somehow snuck back in. So that is a byproduct of a failure from your government. The other incident is mental health. It's not only a crisis, not only for, this country and New York City in general, but if you go back in time, there was something called Thrive NYC. It was a program that was heralded and led by Charlene de Blasio, the former mayor of New York City, Bill de Blasio's wife. Well, I don't know, the ex-wife. I don't know what they are now, but allegedly there, $800 million of this program to over $1 billion from this program went missing. Taxpayer funds, and no one's ever answered that question. But this was a program that should have helped the mentally ill. Instead, the mentally ill are running wild in New York City from Bill de Blasio's time until now. Now it's getting worse. So Eric Adams did inherit that mess, but he also hasn't done anything to try to curb this problem. And either way, this defendant should also be in prison for the rest of his days, along with the arsonist who came from Guatemala. Never should see another day in freedom. So now we move on to another topic, the New York City Police Department in general. So now we're going to move into another subject, another topic, and that's the New York City Police Department. And apparently the police commissioner, Jessica Tisch, who everybody assumed is the red herring and that's going to make all these changes. I stated the day she was appointed that she would be nothing more than a puppet that has minimal say, and this is Eric Adams' show. And if you followed the last few episodes and you actually just followed the Sal Greco show from day one, you would see how I lay down this entire theory and actual evidence down to the T. That I am telling you, in Eric Adams' world, there's only one king, and that's Eric Adams. Eric Adams calls the shots. And here, we're going to show you exactly what I'm talking about. So here's a post by John D. Macari, the co-host of the Finest Unfiltered podcast. John Schell, whose mentor is Jeffrey Maddrey, has been appointed as the NYPD Chief of Department by the real police commissioner, the first indicted New York City Mayor Eric Adams. Although Schell has numerous corruption and misconduct allegations that were not properly investigated, and many of his own staff were transferred amid this overtime scandal, Eric Adams once again chooses blind obedience over integrity. Appointing Schell is not a decision anyone looking to clean up the NYPD, restore morale, or improve public safety would make. This shows at NYPD PC has no real power. The first few weeks of her administration and moves were merely a strategic PR campaign to clean up NYC mayors and the NYPD's public image. Corruption in the upper echelon of the NYPD isn't going anywhere. The show goes on. Hashtag crumbs, the next chapter. Here's a post by me. The red herring is just another Eric Adams crony, a very rich one at that. I stated the day she was appointed she would have little say and do as she told. This is Eric Adams' world, and we are all just living in it, according to Eric. Hashtag business as usual. And here is something that should be highlighted here. Jessica S. Tisch, the NYPD police commissioner, posted this on New Year's morning. New year, new job, but for me, this cleanup will always remain one of the incredible feats of municipal government. God bless New York's strongest. And she's reposting New York City sanitation, which, of course, she was the commissioner of not too long ago, not even, 40, 50 days ago? And she's still posting about them. So I posted this in response to that. Still obsessing over her previous job while not focused on her current one. She just promoted a sexual misconduct enabler and the guy who associates with a self-admitted criminal mob associate as her top chiefs. Hashtag Eric Adams billion-dollar puppet. So I'm in agreement with John Macari, but I'm also the one that stated that Jessica Tisch would be nothing more than a billion-dollar puppet. She doesn't run the police department. Jeffrey Maddrey has not been suspended. In fact, she anointed John Schell, who is named in this complaint, and there's going to be a lot more coming down the pike about whatever he was doing in that scenario. And then Philip Rivera, who is associating and buddies a former frequenter of Con Sofrito in the Bronx, and he's associating with a self-admitted criminal mob associate. So instead of being terminated, he is now the permanent chief of patrol. Jessica Tisch clearly not calling the shots. She may be able to rearrange some furniture, but she can't paint the whole room. That's the best way to describe it. But what does Eric Adams have to say for all of this? So let me play this clip brought to you by John McCarry of his most recent press conference. NYC Mayor Eric Adams tells the press he made their careers, and then he went on to say to reporter Katie Honan, quote, "Who knew who you were before I became the mayor?" End quote.
Or who's their popular reporter, because outside of this, they may not know who you are. I made y'all careers. You know that, right? Some of you are going to write books, and just do your whole assessment. You have to be Katie. You must be the happiest person going. Like, who knew who you were before I became the mayor? Right. All of you, that? All of you you're going to sit back. Y'all didn't have this much fun with the former mayor, did you? Okay.
There you have it. I mean, this guy is the most corrupt politician in America today. He is going to surpass Joe Biden because Joe Biden only has a few days left as president, as now we are going to see the 47th president be inaugurated on January 20th. Eric Adams is in a league of his own. And I think that public safety is going to continue to deteriorate in New York City. And all the recent scandals and controversies that you're hearing about, it's just going to get worse. It's going to get bigger. You're going to hear about even worse things that you have been hearing about. And Eric Adams will play it off like everything's okay. Hey, we're the safest big city in America. Meanwhile, you have to worry about if you're on a train track, you end up on a train track waiting for a train. Someone's going to shove you on one. So with an oncoming train. So look, once again, I pray for the men and women of the New York City Police Department, who I believe will now pay the ultimate price for what the former chief of department and company were doing. Because they never hold anyone accountable up top. It's always about punishing the people on the bottom of the totem pole and making it look good. And they'll return to the actual, it's the state of New York in general. Corruption. That's where you start. So, unfortunately, this is something we're going to continue to dwell on and dive into because it's just not right. It's not fair to the New York City taxpayer and also to the hardworking men and women of the New York City Police Department. Jessica Tisch, once again, she's not a red herring. She's just another cog in the wheel of the Eric Adams corruption family. And with that being said, let me play my segment on the Joe Hoft Show. Hope you enjoy it, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Sal Greco Show.
Hey, welcome back. And again, happy holidays and happy New Year. Here, the last show of the Joe Hoft Show this year of 2024. So what a year it's been. What a great year it's been. Lots of success, lots of great things happening. One of the most iconic years in world history. I believe that. I believe 1,000 years from now, they'll be writing back to these stories about President Trump and what's going on. And people like us, it'll be our stories that'll be read. And that's pretty exciting. And because we're doing the work of incredible people and God-loving people. And that's what we love. Anyways, I've got a great friend on today, Sal Greco, and he is from New York City. He's a former policeman. He's got a heck of a story himself, but he's going to help us unwind the criminal acts by the New York Police Department right now. So welcome to the Joe Hoft Show, Sal.
Joe, my friend. It's an honor to see you. I want to say this before we start, Joe. You yourself are a trailblazer because you had a hand in uncovering all this corruption. You were the only person that first wrote the very first article or anything in regards to Eric Adams and his connections to Jimmy Rodriguez, a self-admitted criminal and mob associate who was a co-owner or whatever manager of that nightclub in the Bronx, Conso Frito, which is the link to just about everything in New York City almost. And you've been a trailblazer with that and many other issues, the whole election integrity issue. You know, my hat's off to you. You did another great year here, and you know, you're going to have another great year coming forward, and we all coming together, and we all want accountability, and I think that's what we're going to get with President Trump in office.
Yeah, I sure hope both. You're really generous, Sal, by the way, because a lot of this information came from you, and you know what's going on there better than anybody. Your story is unbelievable to me. You know, I'm following Roger Stone. I couldn't believe how he was so badly crucified by our own country, by this United States government in that bogus case against him. By the way, I was mentioned earlier, I was driving, so I put in this, I saw this video. It's of Sidney Powell talking about Michael Flynn's case back in about 2019. And she's hoping this thing's going to be done because there's all sorts of Brady material that she knows about and she's requested, and she wants to get it because she knows already there was enough evidence to throw the case out. And I'm listening to this, Sal, and I'm just like, I can't even believe this stuff. Listening back to it, it's like, my God, this was a criminal enterprise going after General Flynn. The same thing against your buddy Roger Stone and my buddy, I'd humbly say. And it was garbage. And through Roger is how I met you. So maybe to start things off real quick, why don't you share a bit of your story and how you how you're connected to Roger and how you ended up getting here today.
Sure. So I was a veteran of the NYPD for 14 years. I had an unblemished record, and somebody there became irked that they found out that I was a friend of Roger Stone's. So they put me through a 19-month witch hunt. They said I was their rule or their provision in the New York City Police Department patrol guide, which governs the NYPD. There's a rule that states, well, it's actually been altered now. We wonder why. But it said that you cannot wrongfully or knowingly associate with someone who's reasonably believed to have engaged in or likely to have engaged in criminal activity, i.e. Roger Stone. So they started this witch hunt. They used illegal subpoenas. They were monitoring me. They followed me. They actually ran people that, were associated with me or, were showing up on my phone records that called me. All to say at the end, I had no criminal liabilities in any actions that took place on January 6th, on January 5th, any day prior, before, after. I was never at the Capitol. I never have even been to the Capitol, but that's what they kept alleging. It had something to do with trying to overthrow the government. Ultimately, they found me guilty in a kangaroo court. And the New York City Police Department is an internal trial where they said that I was involved in narcotics and then said I was never involved in narcotics. I don't know how that works. So ultimately, I had to end up in litigation against the city. And I've been in litigation ever since. And obviously, I've been one to point out the hypocrisy here of who's associating with who, because you can tell in the last just couple of days how corrupt the New York City Police Department truly is under Eric Adams. Yeah. He himself, as a police officer, by the way, he associated with numerous criminals and felons. And that also includes recently with the police department associating with the aforementioned Jimmy Rodriguez that I mentioned and his nightclub, Conso Frito, which was owned by the police commissioner's brother at the time. So quite a story here, Joe, and it's never ending. I'm still in litigation now, so...
Wow. Well, and just to kind of summarize then, you befriend Roger Stone. You see the horror that he's going through. You build this relationship with him. You like the guy. He likes you. No problems. And then all of a sudden, you're a police officer under great standing, great record for almost 20 years. And all of a sudden, the police department comes after you because you've befriended Roger Stone. And they say, well, he's a felon, so you can't hang out with him, even though he's been pardoned by President Trump. And so then they have your kangaroo court, like you mentioned, and then they remove you from the department based on this relationship with Roger Stone. So since then, you've gone back to the police department and said, hey, wait a minute. You're doing this to me. The police department commissioner, his brother, isn't it his brother that's maybe even a felon, right? I mean, it's just
his brother's a criminal. Yes. Yeah. His brother's a criminal.
Everything was a mess. Maybe we can show this one article. This is the second article that we put up in this series about this establishment in, was it in Long Island, or where was this place at? Was it in Manhattan?
Bronx.
The Bronx.
In the Bronx. It was on Commerce Avenue. Joe, we have to almost take a victory lap here. We helped shut this down. I mean, you shook a tree by even, sticking your neck and out and writing about this, because nobody wanted to write about this. And the most important part about this, besides the fact that the police department, this picture right there, that you can stop right there. That is the New York Attorney General, Letitia James, someone who has the power to try you for crimes and convict you and make you a convicted criminal or felon, hanging out with a mob associate and self-admitted criminal who ran a place that we then found out later on had allegations of human trafficking that the police department was reported to, yet we don't know what happened because they got the report and then there's silence. I don't know what happened to their investigation. And here's the main prosecutor in the state of New York. She is the one person that has the power to make you a felon or criminal, and she's hanging out with a bunch of them. And her track record now is very, very gloomy.
Oh, well, she's a criminal, if you ask me. And what she did to President Trump and these bogus cases there, in her vile attitude. This lady shouldn't be anywhere near our justice or law enforcement or anything. She's a monster. No. This guy, we even connected him back to maybe communist ties to Castro. I think he had Castro at his place when Castro was alive. This guy is a monster. And all these people, if you go down, Chris, in this article, all these people are showing up at his restaurant at these parties, big names. And it was also mentioned, and you sent me a video that a couple of guys about this on a YouTube video saying, man, that place is a party happening. There's cocaine everywhere. It's a big party. And you're like, what's going on there? And yet you've got all these upper level individuals from New York City, there, New York State and city. There's and more on it. This guy started in 1991. Yeah. He was arrested back then. It just goes. History, it's just unbelievable. Here's the guys talking about that. They're talking about the partying going on there. Yeah, cocaine at this place.
He opened up. So he had a restaurant originally. It was called Jimmy's Bronx Cafe. It was infamous for exactly what's in this article. He had shootings. There was murders. There were drug deals. There were people arrested in a drug ring there. His whole history is shrouded in mystery. His whole history. So. And he's associated, of course, to Fidel Castro, Bill and Hillary Clinton are associated to this guy, Jimmy Rodriguez. When Hillary Clinton ran for the Senate seat in New York, she announced it in front of his laundromat, which in the front of it had a tab that said all bills that need to be paid for his restaurant that was shuttered at that time, Jimmy's Bronx Cafe, come here and I'll pay it. Meanwhile, his partner in that laundromat was then indicted by the FBI in Southern District of New York, I believe. So this guy leads to a treasure trove of people that always get in trouble. Right there is Carl Hasty. We have an incident that occurred just the other day in the Bronx where there's a mass shooting where 6 people were shot in his district. And Carl Hasty never has the time to discuss legislation in New York because he's only worried about what you're looking at. He's partying all the time. And just for the record, when we say, the police department, they're always calling about, John Schell, the chief of now the department, which is laughable. He says we need to find the stakeholders. Well, John should know that all the stakeholders were hanging out at this nightclub. They can't agree to anything legislatively, but they can agree on partying all the time, which was, we want to know why that happened. And of course, with those allegations of human trafficking and narcotics and all kinds of crazy things that happened here, and then it was shuttered. What was really going on there, Joe? And why are politicians buddying up with criminals? What's Fat Joe doing there hanging out with these people? Fat Joe. What's Peter Guns, another felon? What was he doing with all these police officials and politicians?
Yeah. Well, Mayor Adams right there. Here's Eric Adams.
And Mayor Adams, who's got a history of this kind of behavior.
Yeah.
But he's out judging all of us.
Yeah. And here was, this was the announcement. Is this Adams announcing he's going to be running for mayor? Or
this was when Eddie Caban, whose brother owned this place, Richard Caban, by the way, and his twin brother, we learned, was in an extortion racket, which the other brothers may be involved in as well. So it's like a whole ring of criminality that was going on there. When Eric was indicted, they grabbed everybody. They went to their homes. They took their electronics. They raided the house. And then we learned that all the three Caban brothers, Richard, who owned Con Sofrito on paper, and the other brother, James, the twin brother, they're all involved first in a nightclub and then in this nightclub extortion racket, which also features a guy by the name of Ray Jenkins, who's working for the Office of Nightlife for the mayor, who also is sort of a fixer for Eric. He's kind of knows him his whole life, and he's a nightclub guy. And he went to a guy in Coney Island and said, look, you have problems with the NYPD who keeps showing up there. We don't know why. There's mysterious phone calls going on. And I know someone that can make that go away. And his text messages, and he showed it to the media, the owner of the place, that James Caban, for a couple of $100 would make his problems go away. Of course, he rebuked this, and the next thing you know, 30 NYPD cops show up, and it's just nonstop until he closed this place. So that's the kind of people that were running the NYPD. So besides the scandal that you're hearing about now, it ties back into these individuals you're seeing in the picture. Because here, Phil Banks, he resigned in a disgrace, and he's a former co-conspirator in a federal case in 2014, which involved the police department in his time as a chief of department. I mean, you look at this whole administration, right? Look around. Eric Adams doesn't have a cabinet anymore. And Joe, I find it really insulting for anyone who keeps saying that Eric Adams is the MAGA mayor. I don't know who's getting paid to put out this narrative. Eric Adams wanted Rikers to stay open, which wasn't open. They didn't want any prisoners there, but he said he was going to have it open during President Trump's trial, and said, I'm going to have Donald Trump, if the judge says we're going to remand him straight from his court case, he's going to have that cell ready for him. Now he's Mr. MAGA, but remember, before he was Mr. MAGA begging for his pardon, which he's clearly, Joe, he took $10 million in public matching funds via foreign straw donors. $10 million. That's taxpayer money. That's not money from Turkey. That was money from the taxpayers that he took. All right. So that's a major, major crime, because in New York, it's public matching funds 8-1 for every $250 that are donated. And there's a bunch of different straw donors there. So, and it created a $10 million. Before he's saying he's all MAGA, not to make it about myself, but Joe, how does he terminate me? Because I'm Roger Stone's friend. We could go back and see how many times they've referenced President Trump. First in my investigation, then it led to that January 6th committee, right? And then ultimately in my papers, it said numerous times, it mentions Donald Trump. It mentions that rally at the Ellipse, which I never even attended, over and over again. But I thought Eric is MAGA, but he terminated me for being MAGA. So which one is it? As usual, Eric Adams on both sides of each argument.
Yeah, he showed up. I saw at that one great UFC fight where Johnny Jones won with Elon there and Trump and everything. He showed, there was a picture of him walking up to Trump shaking his hand. So yeah, he's trying to worm his way in somewhere. No doubt it's all selfishness. By the way, here's all these people hanging out with criminals themselves. No problem there, but you get whatever removed from your position with the police department. How's your case going, real quick, if you can fill us in, if possible?
So I'm up to depositions. I'm in discovery, which leads to the depositions. And so we were supposed to depose the police commissioner, the former police commissioner, Keyshawn Sewell, who terminated me, right? So as this is about to happen, all of a sudden, my lawyer, Eric Sanders, who, by the way, represents the lieutenant that everyone keeps hearing about, Quatisha Epps, who's involved in this scandal and has exposed the former chief of department, now Jeffrey Maggi, for the degenerate that he is. But so he is my lawyer, and he receives out of nowhere a subpoena to go do jury duty, which delayed everything for another month. So now I'm up to depositions where now Keishon Sewell, who's the police commissioner at that time, is going to have a lot to answer for. A lot.
Now, did he quit or did he get removed? What happened to him?
Keishon Sewell, actually, she left. We don't know why exactly, although when she did leave, what happened was there was something to do with that chief of department, Jeffrey Madry, who was supposed to be disciplined, and she wanted to discipline the chief of department, but yet it was Eric Adams that intervened. He says he didn't. There's numerous reports that say he did. She just said, you know what? That's it. I've had enough. And she just leaves without really giving a reason other than the rumors that you hear. But now with everything going on, Joe, we're going to get to ask whatever we want in regards to why Jeffrey Madry himself wasn't terminated, or any of these individuals that were associating with and chummy with Jimmy Rodriguez and others at Concha Frito. But I'm being terminated and being made an example for what exactly?
Yeah, unbelievable. Well, you sent us a number of Twitter tweets that we'll see how many of these we can go through, but we'll just start from the top because there's this massive corruption in New York City in the police department. A lot of us, I haven't been able to keep up myself. So maybe you can just kind of fill us in on the story and we'll go through some of these tweets that have gone out by yourself.
So here's the story. So what happened is a quid pro quo for sex for overtime. What happened was this guy, Jeffrey Madry, who was the former chief of department, who has a checkered past. He's in numerous sexual misconduct lawsuits, sexual harassment lawsuits. It's followed his whole career. It's been no secret. It's like an open secret in the police department. And Lieutenant Quatisha Epps, she worked in his office as his main administrator. She was a lieutenant. She's like the administrative lieutenant in his office. Now, mind you, his office has numerous detectives, sergeants, other lieutenants. There's also a captain and so on and so forth. But she's the main person that has to deal with whatever he wants done. He'll let her know. So she made this bombshell allegation that Jeffrey Madry had sex with her 8 to 10 times. No, he says it's consensual. It's not consensual. You can't have consensual sex amongst two supervisors in the same office. The Supreme Court actually ruled on that. So she was there, and there were 8 to 10 times that they had sex in his office, and this was basically holding her hostage. Now, people say, oh, she's not a victim because she made $400,000 in overtime, but that overtime, I think people aren't actually looking at the real factor here. She wasn't the top earner in overtime, actually. And I actually also posted that. There's actual evidence of this. She just made the most because she was a lieutenant that got a $30,000 raise upon her own contract as a lieutenant because she was getting special assignment pay. So she made $200,000, not in overtime. She made $400,000 because of that raise. Now, she may have made 1,400 hours in overtime, but Joe, I posted yesterday, found out in a bombshell on my own show with Marlon Bethel, a retired NYPD detective, that there were people in the NYPD, technicians, they're not even cops, there were civilians that made 2,000 hours in overtime, which is outrageous. I don't even know how you could do that. That's 600 more hours than this lieutenant, who said she wasn't the top person on the list and they're just making her a patsy. Because as you see here on this order, she is suspended right now. The only person suspended. She's the victim slash whistleblower in this case. Why is she suspended and not anyone else? Because pending investigation, Joe, which Jeffrey Madry then abruptly retired 24 hours after this suspension. Why is Jeffrey Madry not suspended? Because now the Manhattan DA, which I exclusively reported, and the Southern District of New York went to the 14th floor and started sweeping everything for evidence from the police commissioner's office on down to the chief of department's floor. But here's the order, Joe, and this proves it. Authority of chief of department. She's suspended. Why hasn't the police commissioner reinstated this woman who's the victim, and the abuser is allowed to walk free, just retire nice, when he should be suspended pending investigation, just like anyone else. And so should a lot of other underlings, Joe. I'm talking about John Schell, who's now the chief of department, was the chief of patrol. He's involved in this lawsuit. So is Kaz Daughtry, the deputy commissioner of operations. There's another lieutenant, Leslie, a trainer in that office that was erasing things, who was then transferred to the first deputy commissioner office. And now she's also putting in her papers, and also the first deputy commissioner right now, Tanya Kinsella, who is testifying to city council that they have biweekly meetings. What biweekly meetings? This overtime list is loaded with cronyism and nepotism, and it's all their people that they authorized to abuse the overtime system. Meanwhile, Joe, the active man and woman in the street that's an average cop that goes to work and makes arrests and has to deal with all that stuff gets scrutinized for 1 hour overtime if they do their job. And if they end up on this so-called list, which is, now we're learning, Joe, there's multiple lists. It's who they want to show as the top person, not the actual top person, Joe. This is outright blatant corruption, misuse of taxpayer funds. There should be a reckoning right now in New York City. And I want this to be an example, because this is what's going on in a city near you, and they need to make examples here in New York City. Jeffrey Madry, you're a monster. You need to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, and so should all your cronies. That includes the entire upper echelon of the police department that was covering this up, including internal affairs, Joe. Internal affairs chief Miguel Iglesias was relieved of his duties. Joe, he should be suspended, not relieved of his duties. He is saying that there was a massive cover-up here. Allegations that are made against the department for, let's say, criminally associating with someone like a Jimmy Rodriguez were never investigated, Joe. They would just cover that up because they're all cronies together. They all hang out at that nightclub and other areas, and nobody ever holds anyone accountable. And this is all underneath the swagger man with no plan, the first indicted mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, allegedly now the MAGA mayor, which is laughable.
Yeah, unreal. Unbelievable story, Sal. I'm so glad you're here. Let's just jump to the next tweet that went out. What's going on here?
So here I mentioned that Jessica Tisch, if she is truly the police commissioner, so she's the police commissioner of New York, as she was appointed just about a month ago. If she truly is the police commissioner, Joe, then what I'm stating about people being suspended, why aren't they being suspended, Joe? Right now, the only person suspended is the lieutenant. So the question really is she the police commissioner, or is she just another puppet / stooge for Eric Adams? Because all the police commissioners have all come up to the same conclusion, that they have some authority, but the ultimate authority is Eric Adams, who's the de facto police commissioner. In the end, he's calling all the shots on every major issue, Joe. He denies it, but yet it's blatant. The evidence is right in front of you. Because why is she not allowed to suspend these people that are, once again, in the circle of Eric Adams? All these people I mentioned here, the current chief of department, John Schell, Kaz Daughtry, who's a deputy commissioner of operations, the assistant chief that was the deputy commissioner of public information, Tariq Shepard, who, by the way, Joe, he virtually put his hands on the former police commissioner, another one that resigned before Jessica Tisch, Tom Donlan, who had the FBI raid his house 1 week into his tenure, and I guess he wasn't vetted. But Tariq Shepard, as the deputy commissioner of public information, anointed himself a 3-star chief. I don't know how that even happened. It was no personnel order that said that he was promoted to that or even demoted to that. He put his hands on Tom Donlan at the Staten Island side of the New York City Marathon. That was reported. Yet he was not suspended. You have to understand, Joe, no subordinate ever could put their hands on a police commissioner, let alone in public. So he still has a job. And the police commissioner, who was the victim, technically, he's gone. So just so you know what you're dealing with, these are the cronies of Eric Adams. All have jobs still, allowed to resign or retire, no problem. So really, is Jessica Tisch the police commissioner? That's the question here, Joe.
Yeah, well, yeah, who's really running the show? Here's another one that you sent us, Sal. Let's take a look at this. There she is again.
Yeah, so here's another question. So allegedly, the police commissioner, Jessica Tisch, is gaslighting the public by she's hiring a bunch of former police commissioner Ray Kelly's cronies for $264 $200,000 a year, $264K. So, Joe, how is it that we're trying to get rid of all these cronies out of the police department just to replace them with former cronies of a previous administration? You're trading one crony to the other. I thought we were supposed to sweep the place clean of corruption. All you're doing is replacing one sort of corruption for potentially another sort of corruption. Because, you know, this was an administration from the past, and I admire Ray Kelly. A lot of people do. I think he was the best police commissioner in my time. I worked underneath him. But, Joe, I mean, he had a lot of cronies around him. It won't look right if we're going back to the mistakes of the past. We're supposed to move forward. So why would we replace Eric Adams' cronies for Ray Kelly's cronies? We should be interviewing people, right? We got to put the best person for the job, not, let's replace people for these cronies. So that's another issue, which once again will come into play to say, is Jessica Tisch the true police commissioner? We know she's a billionaire. She was the commissioner of sanitation prior. So she sidestepped from one department to the other, apparently in Eric Adams' administration. But Joe, I don't know if she's really the police commissioner here. We all call her, they're calling her the red herring, but I question her authority if she's really has the ultimate final say as police commissioner.
You say she's a billionaire?
She is a billionaire, Joe. Her family, the Tisch family, are heirs to the Lowe's mark. You ever see Lowe's, the department store? And also the family owns half of the New York Giants football team.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yep.
Wow. Jeez. Yeah, just the fingers just keep growing. What do we have here in this next piece you sent? Let's take a look. I hope you don't mind. We'll just go through these. I'm really interested in what you're sharing here. It's really amazing.
Oh, here's a
tweet. Yeah.
Here's another beauty. So there's a list there of the overtime earners, but the reason we're highlighting this part is, so this officer, there's an officer here, his name is Michael Devonish. Not to pick on him, but Michael Devonish has 10 years on, but he has a problem. In 2021, he had a case, just like me, of criminal association. In there, I posted what he pled guilty to in the same year. This is while yours truly went through the worst time of my life, where I lost my father. They followed me over there. All these things that were going on to me, because I know Roger Stone is my friend. It's my friend, and I'm a Trump supporter. So while they're doing this to me, this gentleman was accused and pled guilty to criminal association, amongst many other really bad things to plead guilty to. Misuse of department computers, and also using not carrying his shield with his gun, and then also misleading statements. What they said I did, because they asked me if I was Roger Stone's security, which I never was. So they made up a term and said I was his uncompensated security, whatever that means. But Michael Devonish pled guilty to 10 things that were so egregious and so bad, centered around criminal association. He lost some pre-trial or pre-suspension days, some other suspension days, and agreed to a 20-day vacation taken away from him, plus 1 year probation. Then a year or two later, he's now making $260,000 in a fiscal year, and he's in the chief of the department's office with Chief Jeffrey Madry and all these cronies running around. And I don't know how they're being authorized to make all this overtime, apparently, where other people aren't. Michael Devonish is being rewarded for bad behavior. Plus, why wasn't he terminated? Because if you use the terminology in my termination, anyone who's found guilty of criminal association should be terminated. Yet Michael Devonish wasn't, and he's prospering, making $260K from July to July of each year. And Sal Greco is nearly bankrupted and left as a leper. And as some of the media like to call me, fringe, even though they say I have an axe to grind, yet everything I state is factual and truthful. And people yield my axe right now and are behind me, or witnesses and victims that are coming forward because I'm doing this. I have nothing, and this gentleman is prospering. How is that, Joe? How can that happen in New York City Police Department?
Yeah, it's just grotesque. It's terrible, isn't it? It's just terrible. And to see how you have to go through this, it's outrageous. it's just simply you lose your breath on some of this stuff. It's just so grotesque, and great people like you do great things. And then, but you're right. I think as a result, Sal, you have shined so much light on the mess in New York City. They just never, I bet you they wish they never would have touched you as a result. They're now under the light. Now, I'm sure they don't like it. Let's go to the next tweet that you sent me. You sent me a few more. Let's see if we can make it through here. What's this?
So what happened here was after Jeffrey Madry had resigned, the Southern District of New York and Manhattan DA's office wanted to go up there to investigate what's going on. Remember, these are crimes that are being alleged. It's not just allegations. They're crimes that were occurring. There's evidence. So this gentleman here, another crony, Kyle M. Calenda, who's a detective and was promoted, by the way, in a short time to detective, who's making a ton of money in overtime, yet he has 30 arrests lifetime in 8 years. 30 arrests lifetime. For comparison, Joe, I had 325 arrests personally in my 14-year career. This gentleman has 30 arrests, and he's a detective. So he was spotted, and this was reported by the New York Post, but I had it first. He was spotted going into that office. And the next day, prior to the DA's office and the SDNY going in there. And I said, well, all you have to do is follow the cameras. The cameras in One Police Plaza and the security cameras will show what he was doing and what exactly he did and what he was taking out of there. Remember also, Joe, this office needs special permission. You can't just walk in just because you're a police officer. You can't just show your ID. You need special access. Who granted him that access? That's a whole nother question, because you can't just walk into the executive floors, which are the 13 and 14 floor One Police Plaza. It is amazing, Joe. It's just, I don't know what to say. There it is, 250,000, Joe, he made in a fiscal year. Yeah. He made plus over 800 hours in overtime.
Yeah.
No arrest.
Yeah,
Joe.
plus benefits and all that. Yeah, what a joke. Hey, Sal, how can people follow you? I saw your Twitter account there. Where's that, and where else can they follow you?
Sure. So you can follow me at the Sal Greco, both on X and on Instagram, on Truth Social at Head of the Table. And I also have my own show, The Sal Greco Show. You can find that on Rumble. You can find that on YouTube and also on any major podcast streaming platform. Check it out. I'll have a new episode also on New Year's Day. I just released one today. And I'm covering all of these things, Joe. And this story is like a long, winding road that never ends, Joe. It just never ends.
Yeah. Well, yeah, just one question leads to 10 more. Yeah, there you go. Hey, Sal, Happy New Year. Well done. I hope you have a blessed 2025. Great year ahead of you. A lot to look forward to. Thanks for what you're doing, and thanks for coming on today. Great stuff. Really amazing. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. And Happy New Year to you and your family. Hope you have a good one. And for everyone out there, you guys too. Happy New Year. God bless. 2025 will be the year of real change. Not like Barack Obama's promised change, real change.
Yeah. Amen. Thanks, Sal. And thank you, everybody. Happy New Year. Have a great evening. We'll see you back here tomorrow, I guess. Thanks.